Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up?
We got the Cherry Pig Capital team here checking out our property. And I'm Adam here. This is
Marky Mark.
Marky Mark. And we're in Omaha, west side of Omaha, single family house. Gonna chat through property that we renovated and just about to get it leased up, going through kind of final walkthroughs, check on the work done by contractors, maybe some highlights, tips and tricks of what we've done, along with making sure that you check in on the work that's done, completed, thinking that, hey, everything's done and ready for move-in. But as you'll see today, we picked up on some things that need to be corrected. So
yeah, this is a pretty typical process for us, is what we call a pre-leasing checklist, where after the crew gets done on the inside and finishes the scope of work, we'll have somebody come in afterwards and go through a little checklist just to make sure various things in the scope of work were done, and then also certain things are done prior to tenant moving in, like filters are changed. And again, it's an entire checklist that we'll go through. So we'll walk through and show you guys some of what we look for before we get this guy rented out to new tenants.
Absolutely. So I think for starters, your team, acquisitions team, had found this deal. So walk us through acquisition process, how you found it, underwrote it, things like that.
Yeah, so this one, I believe, came from a cold call that we did out to someone. Happened to catch these guys at the right time. They had a recent passing in the immediate family, so the wife was looking to sell off the property, couldn't afford it anymore, just needed to get out of the property, period. So got this one under contract, ended up buying it for $162, I believe. Put in about $15,000 worth of rehab. This is a borderline one, whether we were going to flip it or keep it as rental. The cash flow on this guy, to be honest, is not super strong. There is a lot of upside to it, though. It's in a great neighborhood, has a lot of built-in equity. There's going to be a pretty good upside on appreciation. So this is a good example of, once you build out a rental portfolio, of being able to buy properties like this that don't cash flow the best, but can be offset by other properties in your portfolio that do cash flow better. So again, a big play on this one was trying to be able to hold on to it long term, have the debt pay for itself through the rents. But again, the biggest thing is the equity that we have in there right now and the future appreciation on this guy.
Yeah, it's a killer area. There's a bunch of development happening just behind this row of houses behind the camera there. But huge development happening, a lot of money kind of being dumped into the area. Really nice neighborhood, quiet, good single family house, good type of tenant.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So renovation wise, we'll go through kind of the house here, but maybe just kind of while we got everything set up, we could kind of chat through the renovations that were done, completed, the focus area on, what you looked at when you went through initially, and then we'll go through and see kind of the completed product.
Yeah. So a lot of the properties we buy, kind of first thing you look at is major mechanicals, see how old they are, if they need updating. Anything that has a useful life of less than, let's say, five years or so left, we'll end up replacing those items. So we often replace water heaters when we're going in, having to replace a bunch of ACs, furnaces, things like that. So really, number one is, what do the mechanicals look like up front? And then two is, how can we tenant-proof this property? So when we stick the money up front into the property, this would be one of the few times we'll have to put money into it. And then on the unit churns, the hope is that the unit churns will be a lot less expensive because we tenant-proofed it up front. And when I say tenant-proof, we'll show you on the inside, but we refinish hardwood floors if they're there. A lot of times in these houses are covered up with carpet or other type of flooring. Hardwood is super durable flooring. So typically we'll tear up the flooring that's on top of it, refinish the hardwoods. Other areas will put down vinyl plank. With vinyl plank, it's pretty expensive to put down, but at the same time, it kind of holds up like hardwood does, where you put it down once, and in theory, it should last you as long as you have the rental property. So between the major mechanicals and tenant-proofing the property, those are kind of two main things we look at on what we need to do. Plus, obviously, what would attract good quality tenants to the property. You can oftentimes do what we call like lipstick on a pig. Just go in, do some basic cosmetic stuff, still maybe have crappy bathrooms, crappy kitchens, beat up. You can definitely rent stuff like that, but it comes also with certain tenant pool that may not take care of the best. If they're coming into a property that's not in the best shape, then that just kind of leads them to think that they can be more apt to maybe beat up the property a bit more, not take care of it as much. Versus if you do stick a little bit extra money in there, put in nicer things that tenants usually, in theory, take better care of stuff. And again, at turnover, your turnover costs are a lot less. So yeah, with this guy, it was, didn't have to stick too much money in. I think our budget was around 15 grand. That included doing all new paint, flooring. We did put carpet in the basement. Usually we don't do carpet, but we'll show you in the basement's a pretty large area, and it's a finished area. So sometimes we'll put carpets in. So this one it's pretty simple: paint, flooring, and changing out light fixtures to LEDs. We changed up some plumbing fixtures to low flow stuff to help out with utility bills and whatnot. But yeah, this guy was a fairly easy one.
Yeah, roof's a big one as well. You didn't mention that, but that's a big one that just sort of off the bat, make sure that the roof is looking good. That's a big ticket item. The mechanicals was a big ticket item. Look for those big ticket items up front to make sure that you're not going to have a big punch in the face with a big bill that's not expected. I mean, $15K for a turn, that could get eaten up with the roof just immediately if all of a sudden you sort of overlooked that one.
Yeah. 15K budget could easily go to 30K if you had to do roof, AC, furnace, or new coil, things like that. So yeah, major mechanicals, again, one of the first things we look at, just because they can eat up a huge portion of what your rehab costs are going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and dive in, go check out the property. All right, back here at the property, and now we're inside. Gonna go check out through some of the we're gonna go ahead and check out through some of the different rooms that you go. And go ahead and lead us off here, buddy.
Yeah, so like we mentioned outside, we go through and do a little pre-lease checklist just to make sure that when a tenant moves in, that they have a good experience moving in. One thing you gotta realize, it took me a while to realize it, but now I think about it as common sense, is the tenant is your customer. When they move in, if things are broken, not working, that's a terrible first impression for them and doesn't start things off the way that they should be started off. So after you took a lot of time and money and effort into these properties to, 1, find them, 2, rehab them, and then 3, get them leased up, it's a huge bummer when a tenant moves in and their water doesn't work, or the hot water doesn't work, or things like that. It's so we try to go through beforehand on each one, just to go through all the little details and make sure that, again, when somebody moves in, smooth, easy transition. And then, yeah, so for this one, we did the walkthrough already. Some minor things, like, for example, there's a couple switches down here by the door that just don't go anywhere. Oftentimes we're replacing outlets and switches and covers and stuff like that because the old ones are old, dingy, beat up, broken. So we'll go in, and especially when you're painting, if you paint an entire house on the inside and you have these old light switches that are beige color or mismatching outlets or things like that, it makes the paint kind of look like crap. So we'll spend the extra money and we'll change out all the outlets and switches and whatnot to make them work. So sometimes it can be common on like 3-way light switches to where they may not get wired the right way when they're being replaced. So that's one of the cases here. When somebody walks in, one of the first things we look for too is when you walk in the front door, there needs to be some sort of light switch next to that door that they can turn on to light up the house. So luckily this one has a light right above the door. But again, the switch doesn't work for it. If there wasn't a light above the door in a house like this, we would definitely run wiring and install a new light. So again, when a tenant walks in, they're not walking into darkness, or they're not having to walk across the living room to turn on a light. And for whatever reason in older houses, that was a case where they just didn't have lighting in the main room for whatever reason, and you'd have to walk over to a lamp and turn on the lamp in order for you to have light in the house. So yeah, that was the first thing we noticed in this guy. Other than that, this house was fairly decent. We'll do just a quick little walkthrough to kind of point out some of the things that we saw. So if you want to follow us, we'll go through some of these rooms quick. Can't really fit in the bathroom, but you can get the video of it. So for the bathroom, what we look for is we only want one light switch in the bathroom, and we want that one light switch to control the lights and the fart fan or bathroom fan, whatever you want to call this. Reason being is that when somebody's taking a shower, the steam and the moisture buildup can cause a lot of damage to bathrooms. So we don't want to give them a choice of being able to turn on the fan separate from the light. So we know that anytime somebody's in the bathroom, that fan's always going to be on. And we tend to put in some pretty strong fart fans that tend to move a lot of moisture out of bathrooms. We will go to these bedrooms. These bedrooms are pretty straightforward. This one, again, just something little. There's no closet doors on this guy. But that's another thing we look for too, is make sure each closet has shelving and rods in there for people to be able to hang up clothes and put clothes and whatnot. So when guys or stuff like this, you see it, at least in my head, it's like, dude, knuckleheads, there's not a door on here, we need to put a door. But coming from the contractor's perspective, we work with great contractors, love those guys to death. But when they're working on, let's say 30 different houses at a time, little stuff like this is super easy to be missed, because they'll come into a property, do 90% of the work, and then they'll leave and go to another house to work on a house. And then they'll come back to finish this one up and sometimes forget some of the stuff that they left off with. So little things like this, it's not uncommon, unfortunately, but again, that's why we do walkthroughs like this, to identify those issues. Another thing we look for is going to be door stops on the back of each doors.
And do you put that on the door itself or on the wall?
Either on the door, on the wall, even though we have hinge stops as well. But again, some common sense that just helps prevent holes in the walls, but that's something that's on our checklist. And in this house, there were a couple that were missed. Another thing we check for, just make sure, again, I said light switches earlier, but make sure all the lights work and all the lights have bulbs in them. Oftentimes there's fixtures that can be missed that don't have LED bulbs in them or don't light up at all. We will go downstairs on this guy. So like I mentioned, in a space like this, it's a bigger open basement. For us to put vinyl plank flooring around here is probably 3 times the cost of carpet. So in this one, our budget was a little limited in order to try to make the cash flow work based off of our all-in price on this guy. So this one, we opted to do carpet in the basement, which again, we normally don't do, but it is a cost-effective solution. This bathroom right here, great example. Light switch doesn't work, so lights don't go on, the fart fan doesn't go on. So again, a new tenant moving in, they want to use this bathroom in the basement, and at this point they really can't because there's no light in there. So they come in, they move in, they get all their stuff in. After a long day of moving all their stuff, and want to maybe take a shower and just can't. So again, that moving experience in our eyes is a big deal on how the relationship starts off with the tenant, making sure you want to start off on the right foot.
And then this carpet, you were talking about earlier, making the decision going carpet into this room in particular. That was decided instead of the vinyl flooring, just out of cost purposes, right? You know,
Coming in with the hot questions, bud.
Yeah.
I just went over that though, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Well, that's
I love the question. Thank you, Adam.
Hey.
But yeah, just way more cost effective than what vinyl plank would have been.
Yeah.
It's in here. It's a little bit too dark to see, but we always check the furnace filters to make sure that the furnace filter has been changed. We always notate the size as well. We have some automation set up in our property management system to where we request that the tenants change filters every 60 days. So at the 60-day mark, after they move in, a notification will go out that says, hey, it's time to change your filter. Because we have a note of the filter size, it will include the filter size in that message as well as how to replace the filter. So one common thing with tenants that we've noticed is, again, furnace, AC being big ticket items. One thing that can cause failures in those guys prematurely is dirty filters over the long run. I never really understood, hey, how can a dirty filter really affect the performance of a furnace AC unit, until we started having to replace a bunch of them in our properties. And over the years, you start to understand, plus talking with our HVAC guy, you start to understand really the importance of having a clean filter. So we're pretty adamant about getting tenants to change those filters out. And again, that's why it's also on the checklist before they move in. We want to make sure they have a fresh one, because during construction, that's one thing to keep track of is filters. When you're doing like refinishing the hardwood floors, cutting material on the inside, things like that, those filters get super filthy. Oftentimes when I come in properties and check them during construction, they need to be changed. And it's kind of an ongoing battle of making sure that those guys stay clean. So again, that way it doesn't affect the performance of the AC and furnace in the long run. So other than that, that's about it for this house. This house was pretty cut and dry and straightforward. So that's about it. I guess one last thing we do is we also test all the drains out, showers, bath sinks, kitchen sinks, everything, just to make sure everything drains properly. Oftentimes we have some of our own plumbing equipment, so we'll snake the drains. We do what's called a clogged hog, where you take a pressurized nozzle, you hook it up to a power washer, and you put that through all the main drains to help clear out any old debris buildup, things like that have occurred in the drains over the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is. So again, that way when a tenant moves in, they're not having any issues with backups or anything like that. So yeah, again, that's about it with this property. This one was a pretty straightforward one, about really half the budget at least compared to what our normal rehabs are on our rental. So this one was a nice little cakewalk for our guys.
Awesome.
Go. Any more hot questions coming from you, bud?
No additional hot questions. You did really great today.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good work out there.
Thanks.